Hey everybody, and welcome to Generative Now. I am Michael Mignano. I am a partner at Lightspeed, and this week I am thrilled to have not one, but two of the most brilliant minds in AI today. I sat down with Demi Guo, co-founder and CEO of Pika Labs, the idea-to-video platform. And I also spoke with Mati Staniszewski, the co-founder and CEO of 11 Labs, the generative voice platform. The three of us spoke on the Generative NYC stage, which is a series of live in-person events for founders, builders, and anyone creating an AI today. If you weren't able to attend, you are in luck because we have the full interview here. Enjoy. I'm so excited to be able to speak with all of you tonight. Please help me in welcoming Demi Guo, co-founder and CEO of Pika Labs, and Mati Staniszewski, co-founder and CEO of 11 Labs. Hey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you so much for being here. As I mentioned, both of your companies have become very, very well known very quickly. Never seen a time in tech before where companies just grow and rise and gain notoriety so fast, and both of your companies are no exception. I'm sure most of the people in this room, if not everyone, have heard of your companies, but if not, maybe each of you could just share a little bit about what your companies do and maybe how they got started. Demi, you want to lead it off?
Sure. Me and my co-founder started a company called Pika a little year ago. We're both really deeply interested in artistic pursuits. I grew up in a pretty artistic family, and I have two sisters. One studied film, one studied fashion, and my family also have a cute little art gallery. I did a lot of poetry. I wanted to be a writer when I was young, and my co-founder also wanted to be an animator. And when we got older, we got more involved in computer science and were entrenched by the power of AI. So in the past decade, we spent time in the top AI industry labs and academic labs, such as Google DeepMind, Facebook AI, and Microsoft Research. And most recently, we were pursuing PhD at Stanford. So the reason we dropped out from Stanford and started Pika is, video making is still extremely difficult. We realized that we can actually fundamentally redesign the way people make videos using the research we were doing at Stanford. So we set out to remove the barriers of video creation, such as cost and technical training, to bring it to the masses.
Awesome. And what about you, Mati, with 11 Labs?
Thanks for having us here and traveling here as well. So at 11 Labs, we do audio AI research and deployment with the goal of making content universally accessible across voices, sounds, and languages. I'm lucky to have started 11 Labs with my best friend, who I've known now for 14 years, from Poland. And part of the inspiration for 11 Labs came from Poland. There's this peculiar thing that if you watch a movie, a foreign movie in a Polish language, all the characters are voice-overed by one single voice in the movie. So male and female are narrated by one person. Usually no intonation, no emotion. I can assure you it's a pretty bad experience and something that still happens today. So in 2021, we actually went through that experience where my co-founder's girlfriend doesn't speak English and they did need to watch it together. And that prompted us to look into the problem overall. Of course, expanded that it's not only the problem there, the whole dubbing is usually very poor and bad. And then if you extrapolate other verticals, all the texts not being available in audio, all the conversations not being possible with true audio AI, and of course, how we can turn existing audio assets and make it available across languages. And we started 11 Labs soon after.
So both of your companies are building products that help people with a specific problem. But the magic of these products, and many companies in AI right now, has to do with the foundation models that are being trained by these companies underneath the products. And I think these models probably have a lot to do with what I mentioned earlier about the rise of these companies happening so fast. Like so many AI companies, including the two of yours, are basically found product market fit overnight because of the magic of these models. It's just so mind-blowing what they can do. You can't help but love these things and want to use them. And we're now seeing, this sort of leapfrogging of models like every other week. This company releases a model, it meets some benchmark. Next week, it's another company and another company. Demi, I want to ask you, What is driving this model race where every week we see one company just, upping the one from the previous week? And how long do you expect that to last?
Obviously, we see a lot of hype right now in AI space and also on the technology itself. I actually think it will die down over time when the businesses start to realize that to focus on how to apply this technology and implement on a mass scale. I think at that point, we will, focus less on the minor differences between different technical specs, but focus on which company provide the most useful and intuitive product interfaces, as well as the most clever and easy to use applications.
How are these companies achieving such high quality of the models so quickly? Maybe another way of asking, and both of your companies are building some of the best models in your space, like what is the secret to training the highest quality model?
Yeah.
What goes into it? What's the magic?
Yeah, for us, I think, first of all, we try to build a very, the best technical team, both on research engineering side. So a lot of our founding research team members all came from the top AI lab, both from the top AI industry labs such as Google DeepMind, Facebook AI, and also the top academic schools like Stanford, MIT. At the same time, I think for us, art is also as important as science when it comes to building the team, but also building the model. So we have a lot of team members are from creative backgrounds, so who are filmmakers, artists. Our core team, they provide a creative lens in the model development process. Beyond that, of course, we're a very hardworking and efficient team.
Yeah, I 100% echo the team piece. I'm lucky to have a co-founder who've done a lot of the research before and has been able to assemble an incredible team of researchers. So 100% that, and in our case, it's also being able to focus that team on a very specific set of goals. In our case, it's audio. So just fully going with the audio models. Maybe that will change now with the multimodality, but audio in general. And I can tell that there's always that temptation, even in audio space, to how does the video aspects or text aspect can play into it, but just staying true to that one thing to do it. And to your earlier part, we think that the quality of the models and leapfrogging it matters differently for different use cases or different problems that people have. So for example, we do on one side audiobooks, and we think the quality for audiobooks is getting relatively good, that you can produce an audiobook today, listen to it, and it's great. And now some of the value is shifting from the model itself into the product aspect of how can you produce that a lot quicker, easier, reuse your previous corrections in the future audiobooks. But then you have those different use cases that the research hasn't caught up yet, and we need to put all the effort to get there. So in media and entertainment, you have very short segments that you want to control. You want to be able to not only produce it, but you want to modify it and maybe direct it to some extent. And that's where the research is going. So picking the right ones, both what's the research focus and then what the use cases are where we build the product, is the combination.
So it sounds like what you're saying is there's a lot of upfront investment that has to go into the foundation model and getting that to a point that it's usable. And once that happens, the investment shifts to being all about the product. But if the model hasn't met some quality bar yet, everything has to go into just making the model great. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's right. Although, of course, you sometimes want to balance those two. In the 2023, we've launched some of our platform play, the audiobook example. And we had, of course, a lot of the salespeople try to go to the publishers and sell our solutions. The common feedback we've heard was, we need pronunciation editing. We need more of the features to select the specific lines and correct them. And all seemed right in practice, but the solution in this case wasn't so much on building the product, but actually just going full and building the research, because exactly as what you said earlier, it would have leapfrogged that. So instead of correcting every word, every number to a word, maybe you can just do it automatically. And that's where a lot of that effort is going.
What about in the sphere of sort of generative video models? When do you think this leapfrogging will sort of asymptote or reach its peak and the shift goes to the product? When will that happen? I
think the interesting thing about AI model development is it's a very continuous process. So there's never too bad and never too good. That's how I think about it. Obviously right now in the video space, it's a bit more prototype than the voice space. So both on the product and model side, we're always going to improve the model, right?
Yeah.
So maybe initially the model is good enough for more consumer use cases. Maybe like later on the model is better for like even more professional use cases, but the model will keep developing. And the other reason we want to parallelize the product is also because sometimes the product can actually also inspire the model development. So for example, like maybe you realize it's really important on the product side to do, I don't know, like consistent, having like being able to reference a consistent character or personalized object or personalized character. If you really care about this on the product, this inspire you to develop, to spend more like time and energy on the specific model development for the product needs.
Makes sense. Mati, I've noticed that on the product side of 11 Labs, you seem to be taking two approaches where you're building sort of kind of like the building blocks in the form of like APIs and things like that. And then you've also got these end-to-end apps like the Reader app you just came out with or the dubbing app. I mean, on the product side, not the model side, how do you balance sort of consumer apps and, end user applications versus these building blocks for enterprises?
The consumer app is a new piece that we are trying out.
Yeah.
But in general, so before the consumer piece, the factors we are trying, like where do we think research is ready, meaning where we can actually provide a value, where that leapfrogging will not leapfrog us. 2, where do we see the pull from the customers? And then 3, where can we provide a value over a longer period of time so it doesn't disappear just after we launch and there's another competition taking it over or it's race to zero or anything like this. So these are the factors. And in our case, this was publishing first, then media and entertainment, and now media and entertainment and conversational AI use cases. And it's mostly developers, creators, enterprise working. One thing we've realized, a lot of creators coming through the platform were creating and turning books into audiobooks. They're creating newsletters in audio. They were turning their blog posts in audio. Specifically with books, one of the things that they always were going against is that AI narration for some of the platforms, like Audible, is currently banned. So you cannot publish that on the platform. And we have tens of thousands of people doing those books, and they don't have a place to release it. So we decided to open it up with a Reader app that you can download. And now you can upload a book and listen to it. And soon those people that create with the platform will have a distribution channel to reach their audience directly, which aligns with our goal of making it all accessible. So
then you're an audiobook platform at that point. You're going head to head with Audible.
It's luckily just a small portion of indie book authors.
Yeah.
But hopefully that quality will be at the level of
That's awesome.
Anywhere.
Speaking of competition, so both of your companies are going head-to-head with incumbents. When we talk about this leapfrogging of models, oftentimes it's the incumbents that are doing the leapfrogging, right? I think yesterday, Meta came out with the latest version of Llama, it's state-of-the-art. OpenAI may come out with Sora, or they might come out with a voice model. And it seems like the incumbents who have a vast amount of resources are in the game, just like the startups. How do startups like 11 Labs and Pika Labs stay competitive and stay at the frontier of model training when these incumbents just have war chests of cash and compute and everything else? Demi, what do you think?
Yeah. First of all, like I think, the basic answers are like, first of all, like, we're trying to build the best technical teams from both engineering and research side. And we also really value efficiency. And also I think like there's like differences between the product and the model, the kind of model we develop versus a bigger company. So for example, like we really value like building the type of model that can enable more control for the users. That's something like a pure video foundation model, what Google and OpenAI is using might not have the same level of control, for example.
Sounds like what you're saying is specialization matters, right? For Google or OpenAI, they may have 50 priorities and they've got a small team working on video. They're not going to do the level of control that like a Pika Labs that is 100% dedicated to video might do. Is that what you're saying? Yeah,
like the experience of delivering a model, the experience that the user interact with the model is also matters a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Mati, what about pricing though, right? I mean, like incumbents can afford to just keep slashing prices to bring in as many customers as possible. Whereas I imagine a startup, like your margin matters. Like you need that margin to be big enough to keep your business running. And OpenAI just last week or 2 weeks ago, they released GPT-4o Mini. It's faster, it's cheaper. It just feels like that trend is going to continue. So how do you think about pricing strategy?
Yeah, I think the first thing we need to keep, which of course will be increasingly harder, is that quality advantage over those models. So that's the first piece. And we are betting that we will be the best audio AI tool in the world. So that's the first thing. The second, to your specialization point, in general, we aren't just providing an API, but we are providing a platform with a plethora of different audio tools. And increasingly, people are using plethora of those tools together to derive the value. And as long as we can provide value this way, then hopefully we provide a value and then can give a tenth of that as the price that we charge. The third thing that we bring in, so if you just want a standard voice and just make something speak, then of course those solutions will likely win in those cases. But if you do care about the quality control, if you do care about the variety and diversity of different voices, that's what we are trying to bring in that most of those platforms aren't.
The pricing is always correlates related to the model itself, like the efficiency of model. Meaning the model, you can actually develop a more efficient model, meaning it has less cost and faster, basically. So there's specific AI algorithm that really optimize for the efficiency of the model. And this is something maybe sometime it's unclear whether the big company actually really cared that much about initially, especially initially because they have a lot of resources. They actually really care about the training the next huge version of model. Mm-hmm. So they might and then the smaller company may actually care more about the efficiency to optimize for pricing. So it's really unclear about whether you can actually have a more efficient model that actually just has less cost.
One more thing to quickly add there, because I think, of course, it's easy to say that quality is better and that's why people would flock to either of the platforms. So that's usually the challenge, I think, at least in our case, of how do we prove to the customer the quality in the platform is worth it for them to pay 5, 10, 2x the price of any of the other models. So both a plug for 11 Labs here. We did, and maybe something that other companies can do too, we do have a grants program that you can get, and you have free access to 11 Labs for 3 months where you can actually test whether that quality is good. But I also think it's a good thing to do in general, potentially in your companies when you want to attract the customers, just make it super easy to try out, and then if it provides value, then the price is worth it.
Totally makes sense. Demi, switching to product and use cases, the use cases for generative video, I would say, are still playing out, right? We see things like avatars, where companies are leveraging generative video avatars to do sales and marketing. We've heard rumblings about Hollywood integrating AI into some of the production, but we haven't yet really gotten to the point where this stuff is so accessible and so efficient that it's pervasive in consumer yet. As the model quality improves and the products improve and they start to get really efficient and fast and super high quality, what do you think are the features and the use cases that will emerge with consumers and generative video?
I feel fundamentally what AI really enable is, obviously helping people to make AI video, content creation process more accessible, right? So it make much easier to create a video, but also much easier to create a video that are beautiful, basically. So we're actually incubating a very new platform and new use cases, probably more consumer than professional. Not sure how much we can reveal it now, but that's something we're working on. Yeah.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yeah.
And both of your companies partnered on a feature, if I remember correctly, right? What was that? Maybe you can share a little bit about that, Mati.
We are continuously experimenting as effectively, of course, the video is so much more immersive if you have audio, and audio is so much more appealing if you have the visual element. So we tried a few things with narration on the videos, and with effectively combining what you have when you watch Pika generation with audio. Pika did sound effects as well. They are merging. Maybe at some point we can be able to create a whole personalized experience. Because of course, you can imagine some of the consumer place where the video is more catered to the user, but that as much applies to the voice. How incredible would it be where you can listen to the audiobook with consent and permission from the person, but have your favorite characters, favorite voices all available on any specific movie, clip, audiobook. I think it'll be amazing.
Mati, you talked a little bit earlier about use cases. Speaking of use cases and some of the areas you're focusing, what are the areas that maybe surprised you? Where did you see demand and market pull that maybe you hadn't expected?
And it definitely keeps happening in different places. First one is maybe a little bit boring, but it was exciting for us at the time, which was the audiobook example. When we released our app, it was like a text box where you could only input 250 text characters or something like that, effectively Twitter length. And we had people, book authors, come and copy paste their book all the way through to produce the whole thing. And then they brought people more to us saying like those people also want to do it. So that's what inspired building more of the interface. But currently some of the, like one of the recent ones, specific ones that's amazing. And I probably already said it to a few people here, but it's in the healthcare space where they don't have enough doctors and nurses to be able to cater to all the patients. So they are figuring out how to automate the call to remind about taking the medicine or take notes of how people are feeling, all disclose that this is AI. And people love it because, of course, so many people that these people are reaching out don't write emails, don't have text, easily accessible. And they just so appreciate people checking up on them, taking notes, and then that feeds the actual people calling it. And I thought it was this incredible use case, but I think in that conversational space, we'll see a lot more of like new ones.
Maybe building on that quickly, for better or worse, like how far into the future are we away from like call centers, all call centers being replaced by AI?
Yeah, I'm now thinking in my mind it was better for me to say longer or earlier, but let's say for the early adopters, I would say over the next year or two, there will be some scale. Over next year, there will be like at scale deployment.
Maybe similar question for you, Demi. Obviously, like there's a lot of talk of Hollywood and obviously all UGC moving in the way of generative video. Like, do you expect that, I guess, how long until you expect there is a Pixar-like film, feature film, full-length feature film that is all AI generated? I mean, is that conceivable in the near future?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think kind of the way I feel like is there are two kind of like feature, the two type of way that the AI can create a feature film. So one is like, AI can create different clips and then you can stitch together different clips and create a feature film, which is actually like pretty, like probably very, very normal because if you think about a film, like each scene is usually only like less than 10 seconds, right? So I think that's something I feel like is pretty foreseeable in a very short-term future, like meaning like 1 or 2 years. Maybe 1 year or something. I think for the AI to directly generate an entire film, like a 1 hour, 1.5 hour film.
Like one shot generation.
Generate 1.5 hour, that's probably a harder question. Maybe at that time you also want to generate like voice and like sound effects. And then the model also has to be very intelligent enough to understand the characters, the plot, right? Like an interesting plot. So that's something probably like more long term. So maybe, I don't know, like, but probably just a couple of years, like 4 years.
How long does it take to now generate those 10-second clip, like in terms of compute time?
Yeah, so for us, like, I think if you want to, if you have, it depends on different version model, you can actually just use 1 minute, 10 seconds. Yeah.
1 minute to generate 10 seconds?
Yes.
Got it.
Maybe there's like a continuous stream of movie one day or interactive movie.
That's what I was thinking. And what is the limiting factor to this? Is it just more data, more compute? Like what enables the greater speeds and the efficiency of output?
For sure. I think there's definitely a lot of room to improve on the efficiency side. Our team also tried to hire like a lot of people really strong in the efficiency side. The reason in general, like people are not, the video model is not that efficient is because people haven't really like started to optimize for efficiency, because efficiency is like a orthogonal like AI, like research direction. So that like right now, because people are still working towards a better quality model because there's still some problem with the current model. It's still not like, for example, 100% like hit rate. It's not like 100% like always very good. So that's why people haven't really started to like spend a lot of energy on the AI like efficiency model.
Got it.
But I would imagine there's a lot like, because right now we didn't do anything, so there's a lot of room, a lot of potential on the efficiency side.
Got it.
Yeah.
Speaking of Hollywood and films, Mati, 11 Labs recently released some new voices of like legendary legacy celebrities. I think Judy Garland, James Dean, Burt Reynolds. I'm guessing these are all like licensed through their estates. Kind of a fascinating release. How did that all come together? Would love to hear the story of that.
We have frequently trying to bring the talent on board with us on that journey. And we're speaking with some of the estates for a while of how can we empower their incredible voices to be accessible. And in some of the works, in our case, this was done a range of use cases across audiobooks. And they themselves wanted to hear it back as well. So we actually had some of the people in the family, how can we make it happen? So we tried that, and soon, not only from the States and people that passed away, but we also have now a number of people that are currently some of the iconic voices, and we'll be bringing them up. So also stay tuned for that. That would be great.
Could this one day evolve into almost like a marketplace where any talent could...
For sure.
Yeah.
That would be, I think, even when you produce say a dab of the future, how do you make sure that you compensate all the people and control and make it easier in one platform? We would love to make it easy for whoever creates that content. So if you want that specific voice, you can request it, the voice can accept it, and then produce the line. And it's also not so distant because we already do a version of that. So we currently, you can create your own voice, AI voice, and then share it through 11 Labs, and earn money on a specific time period. And then you can earn money for usage on that AI voice. And now we have thousands of different voices, and soon we'll be releasing the amounts paid out to all those people. But for those that played Mortal Kombat, we have the voice behind Mortal Kombat there as well.
Yeah, pretty cool. Switching to venture and capital, the topic of venture capital. Both of you have been extremely successful at raising venture capital. And I think, in general, this is one of the fastest moving times in recent memory in terms of capital and new startups. You're in a room full of builders, many of whom are also likely in the process or will be in the process of raising capital. Any tips for them? Demi.
I think the way we think about fundraising is sometimes not necessarily just fundraising for the sake of fundraising, but more about thinking about what is the next milestone. How much do we raise so that we can hit the next milestone, so that we can continue to raise the next round or continue to move the company forward. So I think that's one thing that we really think about. What's our next milestone and how much you can raise to hit the milestone? Of course, if you show company progress, it's always the best thing for fundraising. Yeah, I don't know if Mati...
No, I agree with what Demi said as well, 100%.
You've been so good at this, Mati. Share your secrets with us, because I certainly... I would have killed to be able to raise as much capital as the two of you had when I was building my company. So yeah, I would love to learn from the two of you.
Maybe on more practical side, and I think everybody will already know this, but I think the first piece is, of course, try to spend as little time on fundraising, but when you know you might want to do it, you want to probably queue them all up in a very specific same week or few weeks. So you get them all happening at the same time, which helps you, of course, use the time efficiently, but then if the offers are coming in or if you know the terms, you can use them efficiently against each other. So that'll be one. Second, I would similar to Demi, and I think how Pika did it, is if you are trying to accelerate some bets that you are taking, it's probably good timing and a good prod to raise that capital and do those bets earlier or quicker. And then I would agree with the usual advice. Don't try to raise more than you will likely need in the next few years. Beyond that, it can make you lazy, which I disagree with. I think you'll still push. I just don't think it's worth to give the equity in the company away, and it's better to save it for employees or other people on the journey.
Yeah, I also feel generally you should really think about, I think it's really easy for founders to go into to think about fundraising as a game and really optimize for fundraising. But I think eventually it's really long-term wise, it's really about company building. So it's really about what you need for the company, what you need from founding to help the company to continue to move forward. So don't need to optimize too much for fundraising, even though sometimes the fundraising process might not be the most optimal. It's fine. Whatever is the company building is actually more important.
But one of the things that must be so hard for both of you right now is these types of businesses, because of the compute, they're so expensive to build. Do you think that maybe the value of these chips will come down such that you won't need to raise the type of capital you are now, which will then obviously put so much less pressure on the business because you won't have to raise at these crazy valuations? Is that a thought where you're waiting for the cost of the compute to come down?
I think we don't really. I think it's really hard to wait for the compute to come down, but hopefully the company can monetize.
Yeah, of course.
I think,
Of course. So I could ask questions all night. You both have such fascinating learnings and insights and stories, but I know there are people in the audience that also have questions, and so we're going to turn it over to the audience. If you raise your hand, we have a couple people running mics around. Please just stand up and speak your name, what you do, and then your question and who you're asking it to. Thanks so much.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Daniel Murja. I'm building a OS for venture capitalists. My question is for Mati. My co-founder and I actually wrote the Golang library for your client. It's open source. So my question is, what do you think about open source? What are the advantages, and how are you basically advocating for it? And are you going to release more open source models going in the future?
Yeah, and thanks so much for contributing to community. I think like as we think about developer tooling or a lot of how to make easier of deploying our model, we try to contribute there and build the usual SDKs and examples that we can. For the actual model, given that in our case, that's at least now is most of the advantage. It's slowly shifting towards the product, but today research that we've done is most of the advantage and where we spend the majority of time, mostly on the architecture level and not on compute level. We do care about that IP and don't plan to open source. I think there is a point in the future where we would love researchers to join and be able to share their research, but then we will need to shift a little bit away from the research being such a big part of our work over the product. So probably in the future, not in the short term, given it's our main thing.
Hi, my name is Esteban. So I'm really curious on what you asked, or what was the last question about infrastructure in terms of, compute is expensive, especially using compute for open source, even though the cloud providers offer that, it's expensive. So it makes me wonder, with your response and your answer from both of you, is that you don't have any on-prem and you just rely on cloud providers. So in that regard, do you have plans on doing that yourself to just basically offset the cost, which is completely possible, or are you completely tied and blocked towards the cost that cloud providers offer today?
So I can talk about you too. I can talk about first. So we actually, right now we're using cloud providers. We actually don't work on, we actually use a lot of small providers, maybe like small startup cloud provider as well. But we use company like, for example, Together and some other companies. The reason we didn't build our own cluster is actually, to me, I feel like building our own cluster might be more expensive in some sense. And the reason for that is, first of all, like all the smaller cloud providers are actually pretty cheap, or very good price. And then secondly, it's also very accessible. So let's say if I build my own cluster, I have to like set up the team, it might need a couple months, right? So it takes time and energy, and I have to hire the right people to build a cluster. It takes time, energy, and when you hire people, and then building a cluster is also a very specialized job. So especially for a company like us, we're training foundation model, we need a very large cluster. So it's actually not easy to have to build a large cluster. So it's very technical actually. So a lot of providers actually have problem because like if you have like a couple thousand GPU, and then like there's always like error rate. So that's why like if you build your own team to build your own cluster, there's actually a risk like that. So you have to have a really good team. So that's why that's why we like use cloud provider. And also the other thing is if you buy a GPU, like it's a depreciating asset, right? So if we use cloud provider, we can like always rent the latest GPU every year. So if we buy like, A100, let's say we buy A100 last year, and now like we want to use, H100, right? And then maybe later on we want to GH100, 200, whatever. So then if we build our own cluster, then we just basically have depreciating asset, and then we cannot switch to new GPU. Yeah.
What do you think, Mati? Do you agree?
Slightly different. For inference, of course, we use cloud providers today. For training, experimenting with a combination. We are also lucky to have investors, not Friedman, who has Andromeda cluster that we can use to make it a little bit easier in the search times. I think our compute needs are smaller than video though, so it's also slightly different. I do expect to experiment more with both. So the quick answer would be that likely we will try some. in the near future.
I mean, it is interesting. Mati, you and I were talking earlier. There are some companies that are just vertically integrating across the stack. XAI is an example. They just launched the massive data center. I think OpenAI probably does some of this as well.
Sure.
But obviously a very, very costly endeavor, especially with language.
Exactly. Also, if you take a look, because I used to be very like, the cluster is only cheaper if you have a very large cluster.
Okay.
So
Explain that.
Yeah, it's because basically there's like a fixed cost for building the team, right? The maintenance team, and then I think the space and everything. I actually like while we're deciding where to build GPU, I actually consult a lot of people. I forgot the exact details, but there's some fixed cost of maintenance and like renting the place and all those like the people cost. So it only like become cheaper and become marginalized out when you have a very large cluster. But if you have a very small cluster, like you have to still rent a place, still hire people. So it's actually like, more expensive.
Yeah.
To build cluster together, it sounds.
There you go. Yeah. A couple other quick questions.
Hi, I'm Desmair. I'm a product manager at Cash App that happens to be very interested in generative AI. Both of your products are awesome. So questions for both of you. You're both working on like the frontier of engineering development, leading really big teams and exciting products. How do you think about like a roadmap and like what to build? Because there's so much ambiguity in terms of like what you could build, and there's so many opportunities. Like how do you prioritize? How do you figure out what the right thing to build is?
Yeah, I think I heard there's a saying that if you're building a company, you should spend 1/3 of time thinking about strategy, 1/3 of time recruiting, 1/3 of time just doing company execution stuff. I think that's kind of thing about it is like, it basically I always, probably because we always think about start out all the time. So basically all the free time you kind of are thinking about strategy anyways. I think it definitely helps if you should definitely keep thinking about like strategy, and then you'll have idea and you'll be convicted in some roadmap.
Mati, Demi, this has been fascinating. I have learned a ton. I'm sure everyone in this room has as well. Thank you both so much for the time. We all really enjoyed it.
Round of applause for Demi and Mati.
Thank you so much for listening to Generative Now. If you liked what you heard, please rate and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That really does help. And if you want to learn more, follow Lightspeed at LightspeedVP on YouTube, X, or LinkedIn. Generative Now is produced by Lightspeed in partnership with Pod People. I am Michael Mignano, and we will be back next week. See you then. Thanks.